Hello, and we are back. Now we're going to be talking about one of my favorite subjects. It's nonverbal communication. I enjoy this so much because there are so many things that people don't realize that they say nonverbally when they mean something totally different verbally. And so let's jump right into it because this one's kind of long and we need to get on to it. First, we need to understand one major piece. Communication is inescapable. It's always there no matter what. You see people say one thing, but their nonverbals definitely say something else. Yes, I love you. That kind of thing, right? Yeah, sure, I want to go to the store. It's always there. What about those people who shun or they give the silent treatment? They don't want to talk. They purposely choose not to answer a question. Well, those choices are still communication. They're still giving something away. And communication is also irreversible. So always be kind, right? Because it's always going to be there. You cannot take it back. You cannot change it. It is what it is. If you were in one of these classes, many people did this in K through 12, where they would take a piece of paper and you would mark on it in a really dark pencil, and then you try to erase it and it doesn't come up, or you crunch it up and then you try to take the lines out and you can't get them out because it will never straighten again. Communication is irreversible. You can't take it away. You can mitigate it, you can apologize and all that good stuff, but you can't stop it from happening. Okay, next, we also know that communication is 65% of our communications every day. All right. And most people in the text that I used, the research that I used in the text is said in Alan and Barbara Pease say that people find that nonverbal communication is more truthful and more credible than what people actually say. So people have a tendency to believe your nonverbals over your verbals. All right, so keep that in mind. 65% is nonverbal, only 35% is verbal. And the nonverbal is usually unconscious. So how does that apply in speeches? Well, that means you need to practice. You need to practice the nonverbal as well as the verbal. You need to practice your facial expressions. You need to practice your tone, the paralinguistics, and all those pieces. And you're probably saying, what? What were those words? So let's move on. We're going to talk about the effects of nonverbal communication as well. Okay, so we already know that quite often nonverbal communication can contradict the verbal communication. You know, you ask everybody in class, hey, who wants to put the test off till Monday? Everybody's going to be like, yeah. Okay, but what if you said, okay, why don't we go ahead and get this test out of the way right now? And I can guarantee you the kids are going to be saying, okay. That does not indicate that they're real happy with the idea. So what is the goal of communication? One, it's clear, effective, appropriate communication. I say that all the time. Communication in all ways must be clear, effective, and appropriate. It's the same with the nonverbal communication, okay? By the way, anything nonverbal that creates meaning is communication, of course. Sign language. Do you know how many sign languages exist in the world? If you said that for every language that exists, there is a sign language that's comparable to it, then you're right. There is not just one sign language. Isn't that interesting? Okay, one of the most important pieces of nonverbal communication, eye contact. You notice even when I'm recording, I try to look at the camera most of the time. Why? Because that indicates eye contact. And if you have to do online presentations or if you have to do an online interview, you don't look down, you don't look at your phone, you don't look at other things. You keep your eye contact right here because it is the most crucial nonverbal technique. We have a tendency to believe people more when they make eye contact. If you've ever noticed, if someone's lying at the moment of the lie, they'll look up. And sometimes they'll look up that way, but usually they look up that way. And so good to know, right? Eye contact also helps you connect to the audience because they feel like you're having a conversation with them, which is the goal of extemporaneous speaking. You're having a conversation with the audience, even if you're the one doing all the talking. So it connects to the audience, it builds credibility. Again, you appear honest, you appear trustworthy. And so even if, you know, you're a salesman and you're giving us a line trying to sell us, you know, sand down here in Texas, well, good eye contact can affect your credibility level because it's a visceral reaction. But also, by maintaining that eye contact, you are able to adapt to the audience's needs. If you see an audience member, when you use a term or you make a statement, and an audience member does this, or then that tells you, okay, I need to explain that better. All right, so you can adapt to the audience, you can add something in real quick. Now, one of the things we talked about, and one of the words I just used was paralanguage and paralinguistics. Well, let's talk about it. Paralinguistics is the actual study of paralanguage. Paralanguage, para means with, right? So paralanguage, with language. And these are the things that we use to, they're considered nonverbal techniques because they're not the actual words, not the actual content, but they provide the relational meaning of the words. These are the accents, vocal tones, volume, pitch, range, tempo, all of these things, okay? And all of these vocal sounds that we use in language. They play a crucial role in communication because they express your conscious or your subconscious, sometimes your unconscious meanings. Have you ever had a Freudian slip and something came out that you didn't actually mean to come out, but it's what you actually meant? Okay, sometimes these vocalics can be, you know, laughter, yawning if you're tired or if you're bored, belching. In some cultures, that's considered a compliment to the food. In some cultures, it's not. And, you know, you got things like the yeah, and like, you know, things like that. These are all considered paralanguage, which is considered a nonverbal technique. Okay, so let's first look at accent. I love accents. Accents can be from anywhere. Accents are all over the place. I went to England and I dove right into it. I love it. But we also have accents here in the U.S. just based on dialect. These are linguistic changes that to terms that are common to a certain geographical region, right? So if you go up north, you're going to park the car in Boston. You know, you're going to park the car. Or if you're in New York City, you're going to, hey, say, use guys. And down here, we're all about the y'all or bless your heart. Okay. We have all these kind of things that we say. Dialect has specific terms and phrases that may not be used elsewhere. I tell you, every time I go up north, if I say y'all, they kind of look at me funny and sometimes they giggle. But when my family from up north comes down here and they want to pack the car, go use the bubbler. The bubbler, by the way, which I discovered and I did not know, was a water fountain. Okay, so we have these weird terms that we use. These are all dialect. And I love them, but we have to accept that people are going to have them. So that's one of those tolerance things that we have to adapt to. Pitch, range, and intensity. Pitch, of course, is how high, how low you go. All right, you have a voice up here, that's great. Or you might have a voice down here, that's fabulous. But pitch, when we talk, it goes up and down. You notice sometimes, like right there, sometimes I raise the pitch. We don't. We go down. Pay attention to how you speak. The best way to experiment with that is using your own name, okay? So I go, Tanya, Frolic, Carter, okay? So we go up and down in pitch. If we don't change that pitch, then it's called monotone, and it has no variation in its language. It does not sound conversational, and quite frankly, it's very tiresome. Nobody wants to listen to a monotone presentation. Now, vocal intensity has to do with the energy you put into the language. Have you ever had to whisper to someone and go, hey, how are you? but they couldn't hear you, so you still couldn't talk loudly. You still had to whisper, so you put more energy into it. Hey, how are you? Okay? You get a little bit more of the language, but without the actual terms. It has to do with intensity. Think in terms of pixels. I know I told you in the book to think of it this way. If you think of an image that you're playing with in paint, and I think everybody has done that at some point. You pull up paint and you put in a picture and then you start playing with it. And the more you blow it up, you see that every picture is made of lots of little blocks. They're called pixels. And the more intense the tone in a pixel, the more intense the image altogether. So you add more pixels to make it a more intense image. That's very similar to the concept of sharpness and vocal intensity. All right, our next topic is volume and tempo. Volume, we already know what that is. You turn it up, you turn it down. You get loud, you get soft. Okay, we already know that. Tempo is our pace or rate of speaking. Okay, you need to keep in mind most people speak between 120 and 170 words per minute, but 125 is about the average. That's what most people speak per minute, because we have to remember we pause. We pause regularly. Now, comprehension is 600 to 800 words a minute, but that's because, notice I even put it in the slide here. It says I put words, images per minute. Because do you really think in words all the time? Sometimes you do. Sometimes you absolutely do. But sometimes when we have a thought, we have to take a minute to figure out the words to put it into, right? That's encoding. We already talked about that in a different chapter. So you're really not thinking of words all the time. You're thinking in concepts and in ideas, in images sometimes. So if someone is only speaking 125 words per minute, why can they still not keep up with what we're saying? Sometimes because we do have to have those pauses. We have to have processing rate go on in there. Now, the most competent communicators are able to speak between 125 to 150 words per minute. And that's your goal for most public speaking. Stick between those two and you'll be doing okay. Now, we talked about paralanguage as nonverbal communication, but there's so much more to nonverbal. Our externalizations. And this is how we share information about us without using any language whatsoever, not even any paralanguage. Artifacts. Artifacts are things that we have, things that we use. Artifacts can be hairstyle. Okay, artifacts can be the style of cheaters I get. I use cheaters, but you know that there are so many styles out there. So those different choices would be artifacts. We've also got, clothing styles, body alterations, okay? And when I say body alterations, we could be talking about tattoos and things like that. Uniforms. That is an externalization. You're wearing a uniform. I know you went to a certain school, or you have this certain religious system, or et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, here's some more examples of artifacts. Your room decor. What does your room look like? If you have a house, what does that look like? What kind of vehicle do you choose? By the way, I've noticed something interesting. Most gentlemen keep a messy car or a messy house and a clean car. Most women, gentle women, keep a clean house and a messy car. It doesn't always work out that way, but that's just kind of a generalization I think is kind of funny. Your musical preferences say a lot about who you are as a human. And so that is also a simple, an example of an artifact. The next one is facial expressions. We kind of talked about that already. This is secondary to eye contact. This is the most important part of any social interaction because our face says so much of who we are. Now, have you ever noticed, though, that sometimes when you are in a social situation and you don't really know what to do or what to expect, you find yourself mirroring the people around you? If you get up to give a speech and everybody in the room is doing this, that's going to bring you down a little bit. So even as audience, we need to practice keeping a positive facial expression. Now, I'm not saying if you have BSD, okay, RBF, excuse me, RBF. You can look that one up on your own, okay, because I'm not going to say the words here, but some people just have that look. Their mouth naturally turns down. It's not something, their eye, everything is just naturally down. So you're always wondering, are they in a bad mood? I used to do that to my daughter all the time. Are you okay? Are you okay? Finally, she up and yelled at me. But she had to also learn that in some situations, she just kind of kept a small little smile on her face at all times, so people didn't think she was upset. Often our facial expressions are processed subconsciously by the people who are observing us. Okay, so we need to keep that in mind. How do you want people to respond to you? This is a primary source of your emotional expression, and this is how we know so much about the people around us. Now, what about in public speaking? I'm going to tell you, first thing you should do when you stand up to speak, smile. Just smile. Okay, even if it's just a small smile and you look around the room, make that eye contact, and you're going to notice something. When people smile, we have a tendency to smile back. So that can make you feel a little bit better. Now, the next piece of nonverbal communication we're going to talk about is a fun one. You could actually take long classes in this. But we're going to study kinesics briefly. It's the study of the body and body language. I've given you some examples here of different gestures that people use, different stances. Here's something interesting. If you're having a conversation with someone, you might be having a great time, but look at their feet. If one of their feet is aiming at the door, they are already halfway out of this conversation, and they kind of want it to end. Now, is this 100%? No, but it's an example of how we can look at body language to make a determination. We know that when people are like this, they are more closed off. Now, could they be cold? Yes. I have a tendency to do this a lot. I had to change it to this, because I really was indicating that I was cold. Just the way I held my arms indicated something to people that I did not mean to intend. So when we're talking about kinesics, we're talking about head or hand movements, okay? Many of these are standardized, but there are some cultural differences. For example, quite a few years back, we had a president here in the United States who went to Australia. Fabulous. Okay, but they didn't give him enough information. They didn't brief him on gestures in Australia. And he got off the plane and he's saying, hey, how's it going? Doing this gesture right here, which here means nothing. It's like, okay, or hey, how's it going? But there, it was a very rude gesture, and it could have potentially caused a bit of a international incident, but we managed to, shuffle that over and make it okay. So remember that gestures are not always going to be the same, no matter which culture you're in. Be very careful with that. Another form of kinesics is posture. We know that to appear more confident, you need to stand up. You have to have your shoulders straight, your head up. What did I put? Stand up straight, head up, shoulders back, and weight evenly. Yes, okay. Keep your feet planted, all right? Keep them planted. Don't sit there and rock back and forth, because that makes you appear less confident. So it says open your chest and point your shoulders towards the audience. I'm not, saying do this. Don't do that. But if you can do this, then your shoulders are in the right spot, okay? Now, one thing that this does, though, and it's a beautiful effect, is it can help with your vocal projection. It can also help with your eye contact and your breathing, because you're opening your chest more. It just happens to work. Now, emblems and illustrators, regulators, and adapters. These are very helpful tools. And, oh, shoot, I'm sorry, I've got a call. Let me pause for... Okay, sorry about that. It was a call I have been waiting on. My PowerPoint went away. Why is it not back? What happened? No. Okay, let me get this going again. Okay. So we were talking about Yes. There. Oh, it went away again. No. I'm having some issues today. All right. There we go. Sorry about that. All right. But I did pause it, so you didn't have to wait that whole 10 minutes while I was gone. Now, emblems are gestures that we use for when we are communicating with someone else. These are usually our gestures, but they can represent like waving hello or yes. You know, you nod your head to mean yes or no. Interestingly enough, in England, when they write, they say shake your head, yes. And so usually when we say shake our head, we mean this, but they mean this. So we call it nodding. Illustrators or accentuating gestures are gestures to illustrate spoken words. I tend to use them all the time. It's like, wow, you know, anything that you use to, as a gesture to accentuate what you're saying. Regulators are things that we say like when we're nodding heads, we're talking to somebody. I used to love it. My dad would be on the phone and of course he speaks a completely different language. So you know how some people when they regulate the conversation, they'll be saying, okay. And he's over there, Ken. It's just constantly. Adapters are the things that we do that they are nonverbal, absolutely. But there are things that we do like when we're cold and we're doing this, or when you yawn and you cover your mouth, or if you sneeze, hopefully you cover your whole face. Okay, those are adapters. Next we have different types. Now these are usually used with verbal messages, okay? So these are some more usages of gestures. We've got repeating, that's complimenting. It's like, okay, you need to go over there and then take a right turn. Okay, so you're using your gestures to complement what you're saying. So if you say yes and nod, yes, the gesture is the repeating or the complimenting. Contradicting, we do this quite often. Do you really want to go? No. We've seen people do this, but we do know that sometimes our facial expression can indicate that what we're saying is not exactly the truth. Yes, I really want to go. Thanks. Substituting is similar to emblems. It's when we use gestures to give gestures to indicate an answer. It's very similar to emblems. It's like, have you ever heard somebody, kids do that all the time. Where are you going? What are you doing? Okay. Proxemics is a different study altogether. This is the study of space between people and physical contact, as well as that, you know, some people get inner anxiety when people violate our space. We have what we call the hula hoop. And this is our zone of comfortable space. And who is allowed within our hula hoop? And how big is your hula hoop? Is it this little? Is it this big? Is it bigger? Everybody has a different size hula hoop, but that is our intimate zone right here. And when you're talking about your intimate zone, what is all that? When you're talking about your intimate zone, you're talking about just that space that, why is that so small? I don't know what you're seeing on your screen. Hopefully it's big enough. Anyway, your intimate zone is just the people with whom you feel most comfortable. Your personal zone is like your buddies, your pals, your friends, and you're okay with them being in that space. It's not a problem. That's 18 inches to 48 inches on average. Now I realize 18 inches is probably right here. Are you okay with someone standing there? If so, then they're probably more than just an acquaintance. Your social zone is about 48. Extend out your hands as far as you can go, and that's not going to be enough. 48 inches is 4 feet, okay? Your social zone goes way out there. But this is where you're comfortable with people that are acquaintances. You don't know them that well, and so you're okay with them being over there. Stay over there. It's all right. Your public zone is way out there. Okay, think about this. When you get into a crowd, how comfortable are you shoving through the crowd? Probably not very comfortable. Are you going to stand there right in the middle of the crowd and have a conversation? No, because people are inside your intimate zone. You're going to be moving. Now, I have to tell you, though, it was great during COVID. This was the only benefit we got from COVID. Going into the store and they made us stand 6 feet apart. I loved it because I am real tired of people breathing down my neck when I'm in line at the grocery store, I tell you. The next thing we're looking at is haptics. This is the study of touch behavior, all right? How we touch, how we interact with touch. There are high contact cultures. These are people that are very, very touchy-feely all over the place. Italians are very high contact. Low contact cultures, think of the Asian cultures. They're very limited on their contact. They don't like a lot of personal contact in public. They may have it in private, but in public, it's not what we see. U.S. is pretty much a moderate contact. We touch, but we don't touch a lot. And it can be used to influence behavior. If you think about it, if you're in class and I have students acting up, I might just tap them on the back as I walk by. Hey, let's get on target. Or if you go to a store and you're going to buy a car, what do they want to do? They want to shake your hand. That's because touch can influence behavior. Or if you want to say, I want to look at that car over there, and they'll kind of put their hand on your shoulder briefly. Not much, not going to be in an appropriate way. But briefly, let's go look at that and keep going. That's because touch can influence behavior, just so you know. Then we have chronemics, the use of time. Chron, of course, meaning time. Emics, okay, the study of time and society's expectations of time. There are two primary types of chronemics involved. We've got monochronic time cultures. These are people that the trains run on time. Okay, we set a certain amount of time per day to do certain things. We start classes at a certain time. We end classes at a certain time, etc., etc. We go to the doctor and suddenly we're in polychronic time cultures, and it's very difficult. We go to the doctor. We don't want to wait 45 minutes to an hour for the doctor to be ready for us. But we know that the doctor is scheduled every 15 minutes. So why can't he get his stuff done in 15 minutes? Anyway, but that would be monochronic. Polychronic is collectivistic culture. It's, time happens. You're not so stressed about time. You spend more time visiting before you actually get down to business, that kind of thing. Okay? And then finally, the last one we're looking at is mediated messaging, nonverbals. Yes, mediated messaging is a key feature here, because how many times have we had confusion with someone or dispute with someone because they texted something and you just knew they texted it in a certain tone, but they actually meant it in something completely different. So what we did quite early on in the texting stages, we added emoticons. These were the original emoticons, and I think they're lovely. These are the things that we used quite often. This was the smiley, of course, and that's that laughing face. This is the winky face. I don't think I have to go through all of these with you. But you notice in Japan, what do they focus more on? They look more at the eyes. And in the US, we look more at the mouth. So that's just a little interesting tidbit to keep in mind when you're instant messaging with someone else, because some people still use the original emoticons rather than emojis, which are like our little smiley face here. Okay, we use this in texting and emailing. You should never use emoticons or emojis in formal emails, professional emails. Don't use them there. But in instant messaging, direct messaging, all of these things, if you need to modify or explain a statement, you can use these to mitigate any problems. For example, if you say, no, I don't want to go, that can be interpreted in several ways. But if you go, no, smiley, I don't want to go, and then you put a tear face. Okay. It just mitigates it. It makes it seem like, oh, you don't want to go, but I'm sorry. Okay, you could just say I'm sorry, but anyway, that is the end of this presentation. Hopefully I got it all in there, and I will be seeing you next time. Thanks. Bye. Let me find it.